Welcome to the Biz Kidz Podcast. We're back and we're here to inspire you with entrepreneurship stories today. I have a guest with us, Brian Davis of Complete Construction Group. And as always, we like to hear stories of entrepreneurs, what they've done, how they got the bug, and how they actually went out and got started in their business. So as we always start off, Brian, tell us in 60 seconds who you are and what you do.
Well, my name is Brian Davis. I am Complete Construction Group. We do interior remodeling here in Southwest Florida. We specialize in kitchen and bathroom remodels, but we also do what I like to call jobs of substance, whether it's floors, doors, baseboards, drywall repairs. We can come into your home and make it beautiful again.
And I want to let you guys know that Brian has been working with the Biz Kidz as a mentor. He's judged at a few of our competitions, and he's been at a couple of our events where he actually got a chance to talk to the kids, kind of give them some advice. So we thank you for the time you take to invest in our kids and kind of teach them those skills. As entrepreneurs, a lot of people and a lot of us all got the ideas when we're kids, like, hey, I want to make some money. Oh, how old were you when you first got the bug of entrepreneurship and wanting to start your own business?
Well, growing up, my father, he started and built a painting contracting business in Naples, Florida. So it was probably kindergarten, summers during school. When it was summer, we were in his shop. We were sanding boards, we were priming, we were staining. As I got older, I was able to go out and work in the field, and I got to really kind of watch my dad direct how things went, lead people, motivate people, and I got to see him build something that he owned. So it probably started back then, pretty early.
Did he have you out doing sales, or did you work in the shop doing all the dirty work?
Yeah, I started at the broom. I was sweeping, I was sanding. Looking back now, probably a lot of the boards that I was sanding weren't even boards that we were going to put in any homes. They just had me out there learning the skills. I didn't really get too much into sales until later in life when I started working at Sherwin-Williams. That's really where I kind of honed my sales aspect of business.
Well, we all have to have that Karate Kid vision of like wax on, wax off, and get in that process of doing the dirty work and the basics before we can actually dive into it. So, as a kid, did you ever have kind of that idea of like, hey, I think I want to start my own business, or were you ever interested in trying to sell stuff to your neighbors or your friends or your mom or dad, or to make some money?
Yeah, definitely. I what comes to mind is one summer. So we lived out off of a dirt road growing up. So all the cars were really dirty all the time. And I remember one day going outside and starting a car wash. I think the only car that I washed was my dad's that day. But we sat out there all day. We were shaking signs. We were trying to get people to pull in to wash their cars. I don't know how clean I would have got them, but we were out there trying.
And that's where it all starts, right? As kids, we all find a little thing that we want to make some extra money. Mine was I wanted ice cream from the ice cream truck, so I sold cucumbers out of my mom's garden. So that's how it all started for me. And I got the bug once I got that money in my pocket. And so everybody has a different journey, and so we're always curious to how that worked for you. Now, as you got into after school, after high school, you kind of started getting into a professional career. Did you kind of stay with um, the service industry type of work, or were you in the handyman business, or working for somebody as a handyman because you had those skills now?
Well, I think construction was always in my blood. My father, he was a painting contractor, but he was an all-around do-it-yourself kind of guy. Growing up, we would build decks, we would do home projects. My dad was the guy that would take care of everybody's problems in my family. Whenever somebody at their home, something was going on, we would come over, we'd figure it out, we'd fix it. So I learned really quickly how to do things like cutting boards, using drills, hammers, how to read levels and tapes, stuff like that. So that was always in my wheelhouse. For a long time, I worked for my father in the summers whenever they would have some odd jobs. My uncle, for a while, had, looking back now, what was a handyman business. We would do things like painting and repairs for people. And then I had the opportunity I was actually working for my uncle at the time. It was kind of here and there type of work. And I walked into Sherwin-Williams and they all knew me because of my father. So I got offered a job there. So that was really when I got like the normal 9 to 5 type job. Before that, it was a lot of kind of independent contracting type of stuff for members of my family.
I started that the same type of business in college. I didn't start the business. I was working for a guy. He did remodels of houses and stuff, and basically flipping them. But I was dyslexic, and so every time I tried to cut an angle, I would get it the wrong way, and so I was always constantly messing it up. So I ended up doing all the grunt work, crawling under the house, cleaning out all the junk, and doing all the dirty jobs. But I always had problems of getting the angles correct on for me. Like I said, I'm dyslexic, so it's always hard to see. So
Yeah, don't feel bad. I do that as well.
so as you got to Sherwin-Williams and you're kind of starting to learn corporate processes at this point, did they teach? Were they good at sales training on how to sell the paint and how to get you kind of your mind thinking of how to interact with customers and all that stuff?
If I'm honest, not a lot of training went on. I just looked at guys that were ahead of me that knew what they were doing in their aspect. There were guys that were really good at selling the stain, at matching the stain. The managers, they seemed kind of good at selling and bringing in the revenue. So I just kind of watched them and shadowed them. And I tried to always find the guy that I felt brought the most value to the company and just watch what he did and try to learn from them.
So where in the process did you get to the idea of like, hey, I want to start venturing out on my own and doing my own handyman business?
Well, after I worked for Sherwin-Williams for about 4 or 5 years. I worked my way up from a part-time delivery driver to full-time in their commercial store. And I was trying to continue to get promoted, but there were certain things that were holding me back. And I think about 2015 or so, I got an opportunity to work for a smaller nonprofit organization as their head of maintenance. So it was a little bit of a cool change for me. I got to move around. There was 3 locations in Bonita Springs that I would get to manage. So it was a bump in pay and it was also a little bit more responsibility. So I took that job in about 2015 and I worked that job for 5 years as well, trying to get promoted. It was while I was working for them that I put myself through college. That was one of the requirements to get promoted was to have a degree. So at that time, I thought having a degree was really going to open these doors for me and provide a better life for myself. It really didn't work out that way, but the skills that I learned while I was putting myself through college really helped me today. And it was through putting myself through college, graduating, and then not getting those promotions that I was promised that I started to decide that I didn't want anybody else to determine what my worth was. At that time, I was also going out and applying for other jobs, trying to change jobs again to find a new opportunity. And I would get continually passed up. Either I was overqualified or I believe when I was working for that organization, my shoes were just going to be too big to fill, that they didn't want to promote me out of that position. So I got tired of everybody else deciding what I was worth. So it was at that time I had just had my first daughter. I was living in a 400 square foot cinder block and I knew that I needed to make a change to provide more for my family. So I started diving into handyman work. I knew that I had a set of skills that I'd been developing since I was a child that I could go out and provide value to the clients that were already coming into my place of business at the time. It wouldn't be a conflict of interest, so it was really a great opportunity because I was able to market to those clients that I was seeing all day, every day that knew me at work, so they knew how I conducted myself and then start building the client base off of that, the back of where I was working at the time.
And I think that's always the greatest to see when people go through the process of working for somebody else. You learn a lot of processes and systems that they have, and you see the processes and systems that they don't have. And you may have mentioned them a thousand times to them and said, "Hey, why don't we do it this way?" But they're so stuck in their ways they don't want to change. So you kind of get that thread of discontent of like, okay, you're not going to listen to my ideas. I know what I'm doing and you don't see my value. And so it gives you the kind of that motivation to go, okay, I'm not going to have somebody else determine where my future is going to go. I'm going to take this on myself and figure this out. And kind of using that bridge as the stepping stone to get away and you start doing stuff on your own on the side on the weekends, starting your own basically your own side hustle, and then kind of working towards something where you can get away from the full-time job and have your own thing gives you that freedom. And that's what it's all about is as an entrepreneur, you get the freedom to make your choices of how your day is gonna go, if you're gonna spend time with your family. Whereas an employee, a lot of times they say, "Hey, you're gonna be here from 8 to 5. I don't care if your kids have practice at karate or if they have a football game, you are here during 8 to 5. As an entrepreneur, you get to decide, okay, I'm going to take this hour off to go see my kid's game. And then I'll go back to and work maybe a few hours tonight after they go to bed, so you get that opportunity. So you start kind of getting into doing your own thing on the side. How long did that process take before you kind of said, okay, I'm going to go in all in?
Well, I knew so one thing about me is I know that I don't know everything. So when I wanted to start this business, I knew that I had to get a lot of education about it. So I started spending all of my free time listening to podcasts about handyman, getting involved with Facebook groups that are guys that are trying to build a handyman job, buying courses, buying books, really diving into how to run a successful handyman business, not to just be self-employed. And I was going through that process. I was kind of building a relationship with some clients, kind of figuring out what it is that I do and what are the jobs that are going to make me the money that I need to make. And then COVID happened. That was my silver lining. That was my real opportunity because there was a lot of fear involved. I've got a job that's paying me well. I've got a child at home. I don't. It's hard to make that jump sometimes. But with COVID, we all got sent home for 2 weeks in April of 2020. And at that time, I had some jobs lined up, and I knew that I could keep myself busy for the next 2 weeks while we didn't have work. So I did exactly that. And at the end of those 2 weeks, I looked at the amount of money that I brought in, and I said, "There's a lot that I don't know. There's a lot that I'm gonna have to learn, but there's something here. There's something that I can build off of here based on just the amount of money I made in the last 2 weeks." And I came to my wife and I said, I don't want to wake up and be 40 and wish that I would have taken this opportunity to resign from my position and go full time with this. So at the time we were saving for our wedding and we had a little bit of money saved up and COVID was going on. So we knew that wasn't going to happen that year. So I said, "Hey babe, I'm going to take this money. It's going to be our salary for the next X amount of weeks, and I'm going to get this ball rolling." And she believed in me, and she said, "Let's go." And that's how it kind of started in April of 2020.
And we're at 2025, so you're 5 years that you've been in business. You started off as just a handyman service and doing
Yeah.
that. You got your license to be a handyman, and then
hmm
what point did you go? I need to transition into being a full time contractor, get my contractor's license because I know that's a long process to get your license and do all the tests and all that good stuff to get to your approved contractor's license.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a task. And so I started just me out of the back of my Toyota Tacoma. I'd load my tools up every day. I'd go out and work. I'd unload them. It was just me. And it got to the point where I realized that, I get busy and then I go out and I perform the work and now I'm slow because I'm not out selling and I'm busy and then I'm slow. So I have to create a better system where I can be selling more. So at that time I said, all right, I need to hire my first employee. And I had a great opportunity to hire a guy that I knew, that I trusted, that was really good at a lot of different things. So we hired Kyle at the time, and we hit the pavement running. I booked jobs that he could complete by himself, or just a portion of it he would need my help. So I'd be able to go out, get him started for the day, and then go try to build the business. And we did that for many years. We built it until, I had a full-time helper for him at one point. We had a truck, a trailer, and we had built it to the point where if we kind of hit a little bit of a ceiling of what we could produce in a month. So if we were going to go to the next level, I would need, with the model that I had, I would need more trucks, more trailers, more guys, and more revenue. And I just, with the counsel that I had at the time, and that I have now, we just didn't think that that was the right move. That the right move for me was going to be to get my contractor's license. And my dad was a licensed contractor. And so I knew that that was always going to be my path. I didn't know it would happen so quickly, but it was at that time that I decided it was 2023. I started telling everybody who would listen that I was going to get my contractor's license. because when that alarm went off to get up and study in the morning, I wanted the pressure to be on. I wanted everybody to know that, Brian's going to do this. So we'll be on the lookout for it. So in 2023, the end of 2022, I started studying. The first half of 2023, I went through Camtech School of Construction. And then April of 2023, I took the exams and I passed them all first time. It was really exciting. It was a huge accomplishment. Like I was a lot more proud of that than getting my degree. So April 2020, we got our contractor's license. We got it activated, but fear held me back. I was afraid if I stopped fishing in the ponds of the handyman clients that I wouldn't be able to get the business for the remodeling work. And I also was afraid if I get these bigger jobs, like I can't mitigate risk as much. With these smaller jobs, the whole job can be a failure and I can cover it. But when it's these bigger jobs, I can't have those kind of things happen. So a lot of fear held me back for all of 2023 and into 2024. And it wasn't until about June or July of 2024 that I said, okay, enough is enough. The way that we're going now, we have a new business model, but we're using our old systems and it's just not working. And I need to disrupt everything. I really need to rebuild this thing from the ground up as a general contractor. So we made changes in every aspect of the business and I really stepped into it full time. We are contractors now. We're not handymen in about August of 2024. So this would be for me my first year as a contractor.
As one of my side businesses, I help a lot of smaller service companies get connected with property managers and such. And during that time, during COVID, I must have seen at least a dozen handyman services that all launched into their contract, got their contractor's license. Just there was so much work, and they just needed to hire revenues because they were spinning their wheels. So yours is a very common story, especially during the COVID little run. The only guys that have stuck to doing the handyman work are my retired guys that they just want a little side gig. They're not interested in scaling, and all they need is a little supplemental income, or they just need something to do during the day because they're bored. So now, as we look back at kind of the handyman business, what was one of the mistakes that you made during the handyman business that you would say kind of hit you across the mouth and go like opened your eyes to say, I'm not going to make that kind of mistake again? And I know most of us don't like to celebrate failures or anything like that, but I think we learn the biggest lessons from those failures. Is there anything that stands out to you that, hey, I shouldn't have done that and I learned from it and I'm not going to move forward doing that again?
So many things. I think the entire season of being a handyman was about mistakes, about making the mistakes, feeling that failure, and pushing forward anyway. I mean, we made mistakes out on the job. I made mistakes in the back end of the business. I made mistakes with marketing. I made mistakes with the way that I was employing people. There really wasn't an area of business that I didn't make a mistake as a handyman.
And that's the point I wanted to get across is, as a lot of people get the fear of wanting to get into a business, they don't want to start, but because they're afraid of failing. But that's the process. Entrepreneurship is about failing all the way every day and kind of figuring out what works, what doesn't work. I'm not going to do that again. So if you're thinking about starting your own business, don't get discouraged if you have a few failures. It's the process, and we celebrate that. Like, hey, I learned something today. I'm moving forward. It's behind me. Hopefully you don't make a mistake that's going to cost you a lot in your bank account, but sometimes it does.
It sure does. Yeah, and I think if you're starting a business and you're not failing, you're not making mistakes, you need to look at how big you're thinking, how hard you're going. What jump do I need to make where there is a possibility of failure? Because that's really how you're going to get to the next level in anything that you do is to go after something that you're not 100% sure how to do. So failure is sometimes an outcome in that.
I heard on a podcast the other day, a guy said that their sales team was going out to make sales, and they were out of 10 calls, they were closing 9. And so he realized, our prices are too low. If we're closing that many, then we're leaving money on the table. And so that was kind of one of their lessons they learned through that process is, okay, we price things way too low because too many people are taking it. So a lot of people think if I can't close every sale, I've failed. But maybe you have to raise your prices and get those customers that you really want. What's been one of your biggest wins that you would say in your business along the way that you celebrate and you're like, that's one of your proudest moments?
My wife quitting her job. Absolutely. Bringing her home, retiring her, having her raise our kids from home so that she can do all the things and relieve the pressure from me. Just knowing that she's at home every day with the kids allows me an extra gear while I'm out on the job. So that is probably my biggest accomplishment in business, is her not having to work.
That's awesome. Now, and your final question for you, as you look back through your process, what advice would you give to a young person or even an adult that wants to start a business, start a side hustle, but they're scared to do it? What kind of advice would you give them?
Like we talked about, don't be afraid of failure and don't be afraid to change as you go. We had to rebrand 3 times to get to where we're at here. We had to get multiple different licenses. We need to restructure our entire business more than once. So don't be so stuck on one thing that you're not flexible and able to pivot until you really find your niche and what it actually is that you do.
That's awesome advice. Now, Brian's going to be one of our judges at our next Biz Kids Expo, and he'll be out there talking to the kids and giving them some ideas and listening to their business plans and kind of seeing what they have in store for their future. So we appreciate you taking that time. I appreciate you taking the time today to spend with us, kind of tell us your story, and hopefully motivate somebody to get out there and try it in business. Any final words that you have?
Oh, I appreciate you, JD. I love what you do for the kids. It's one of my favorite things to do, is to be involved with the Biz Kids when they put on their expos and their shows. And my daughter, she's going to be 7 in May. She's been talking about it. She said she wants to bake cookies. I told her, food's a difficult industry, but she's coming, so it won't be long till we're out there at them with our tents and our tables.
Cookies and brownies are easy. Slime sells really well. And
That's what I told her last night. I said, slime, we got to make some slime. Make some money, and then we'll decide what we want to do. Maybe we get the cash flow going first with some slime, and then we can figure out what your passion.
And that's what that's what our whole program is all about, is giving kids the opportunity to try little things to see what works, what doesn't work. A lot of people will try lemonade, but then you have to realize if you're out doing an outdoor event, you have to keep ice frozen there in that whole 4-hour period. You have to carry the ice there. And so finding a product that's easy to get in and out and be able to sell and mass produce quickly is always a good idea. So if you want to get your kids involved in the Biz Kids program, we have an online training center. It's called the Biz Kids Hub, where we coach and train kids to kind of give them ideas of how they can come up with their ideas. You do not have to be in Southwest Florida to be a part of the Biz Kids Hub. Our online training center is for everybody. In Southwest Florida, we actually put on markets where kids can actually sell their products and make money. But if you're in a certain area and you don't have this, we can help you actually launch in your area to show you how to put on markets for your kids. So if you want more information, follow us at bizkidsusa.org. You can find out all the information about our coaching programs and what we do for the kids. Our nonprofit is called the Young Entrepreneurs and Rising Stars, and we are here just to inspire kids, to give them the opportunity to try entrepreneurship and create a life that they want to enjoy for themselves. So thank you, Brian, for being here, and we will see you guys next time on the Biz Kidz Podcast.
See you, JD.